Hello, guys, and welcome to week 4 reviews of Fox Animation. This is the recap series I have every week, and this week is obviously the Halloween specials review. Now, these were preempted due to baseball, which I ended up seeing. Congrats to the Dodgers for winning the World Series. Of course, this was record. I recorded. I'm recording this video before, like a week before it actually comes out, or maybe a few days. So of course, whoever wins the World Series, best to them. Anyways, we're getting a little off topic here. We're. I'm hoping. I'm hoping you guys like this review. As always, it's just my opinion. Then the one thing I do want to say is I liked this year's Halloween specials better than last year's. Like last year's, I think the sim. It's no. Last year's The Simpsons was the best, and it wasn't even that good. So yeah, that's really saying something. I think this year's Halloween specials were much better than last year's because I think last year like two of them were okay, and then two of them I didn't like. Yeah. So, anyways, let's start with Simpsons and Treehouse of Horror 31, or XXXI in Roman numerals as it's known. So, this one has 4 anthology segments. There's a short one about the 2020 election. Uh, there's Toy Gory, which sees Bart treat his toys miserably in 3D because it's parodies of Pixar. Pixar animations in 3D. You have a B9 Rewind, a parody of Be Kind Rewind, I think, and that one sees Lisa stuck in a loop on the same day, and she knows that bad things are going to happen to her because every day it resets to that same day. And actually, I think it might be a parody of Happy Death Day, but you sort of get the gist with B9 Rewind because if everything resets on the same day, if everything resets back to the same day, and everything's gonna happen, you sort of know what to expect. But then every time a bad thing there's always a bad thing, so it ends up just keeping resetting, and eventually Lisa has to try to find a way out of it. And then the middle segment, which was into the Homerverse, sees Homer make clones of himself, which are parodies of movies. Like one of them is a parody of Sherlock Holmes, another one's a parody of Cinderella, one of them is a parody of Yogi Bear. It's sort of, you get the gist. So I'm gonna just share my thoughts on them. So Toy Gory sees Bart, of course, treat his toys miserably, and the toys come to life, and sort of take Bart hostage for what he's done to the toys. And it's sort of like the original Toy Story where Sid treats his toys like crap, and then eventually he gets something. But of course, this is the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, so it's got to be more violent, right? And of course, and the toys change Bart. They basically kill Bart and turn him into a toy. So when Lisa sees Bart outside of the treehouse after they turn him to a toy, and Bart says some toy things, and she screams, tells her parents, and of course they can't change Bart back. He's like that forever, and that's basically it. Overall, I would say I really liked. I like Toy Gory. I mean, I didn't think it was the best, but I like the 3D animation. Story's pretty straightforward. I definitely like that they made it more violent than Toy Story, because I mean, Toy Story is a family movie, but like, it's rated G. But I mean, like, of course, with The Simpsons being PG, you can sort of up the violence a little bit. So with Toy Story, I'd probably give it a B. Now we're going to Into the Homerverse, which sees Homer accidentally clone himself into multiple versions, which are all movie parodies. And of course, when Mr. Burns finds out, he sends his clones to fight against Homer's, and Mr. Burns' clones win. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all that happens. I mean, I'm guessing there's sort of some good moments in that one, but overall, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I really enjoyed it. It was very predictable. It was pretty boring. It was pretty boring. I mean, Toy Story was a bit predictable because it was following in the steps of Sid from Toy Story. But I mean, at least that one had some good moments. This overall was just really boring. So overall, I'd give Into the Homerverse probably a C. I think there's only really one moment I really enjoyed was when the Cinderella princess was like, "Do." Yeah, that was the only part I really enjoyed. So I would give Into the Homerverse a C. And of course, B9 Rewind was my favorite of the three. Well, favorite of the four because there's also the election one, but it's just basic. So B9 Rewind. Of course, as I said earlier, see Lisa stuck inside a loop, but every time she resets, her memory doesn't erase. So she still has the knowledge from the previous days, and then she's able to predict everything that's happening. And of course, Nelson gets stuck in the loop too. So the way for them to get out of that constant loop is to kill Gil, which honestly I found a little weird, but it's fine. And Nelson and Lisa do kill Gil, and then everything sort of goes back to normal in the end. Well, not really, because Ralph's face is backwards, so it's sort of not normal. But I mean, at least the loop did reset. I like the horror that segment had. Uh, I I like the parody. I like the story that the anthology was parodying. It was funny too. Surprisingly, I thought it was pretty hilarious. So overall, I'd give B9 Rewind probably an A minus. I think it's one of the best Treehouse of Horror segments in quite some time. Well, I mean, I thought multiplicity was Multiplicity was one of the better ones, but I think this one tops that one definitely. So yeah, overall one of the best, one of the best in quite some time. And then and then you have the just typical election thing, which is just parodying the 2020 election. It was like 2 minutes. It's basically the Simpsons stance on who they support for president, which of course, with recent Simpsons, you can tell they lean towards the Democratic side of things, or at least the people working on it lean towards the Democratic side of things. So of course, it was just a 2 minute anthology, basically just slandering Trump and all he's done these 4 years. So overall, I would say Treehouse of Horror 31 is one of the best in quite some time. I've been disappointed with the last three, especially Treehouse 30, because I had that super terrible segment, super boring, terrible segment with Abe being a dinosaur. Like, there was nothing scary in that. It was like, okay, he's in a retirement home, he turns into a dinosaur, he hugs Lisa, it ends. It was like, what? Nothing is scary about that. But at least here the horror is present. It's funny when it needs to be, and although the Into the Homer verse segment is boring, I can sort of give that one a pass because I enjoyed the election special, the Toy Story, and B9 Rewind. Overall, I would say Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 31 is definitely worth the watch for any Simpsons fan, or like someone who only sticks around for the Simpsons for Treehouse of Horrors. You will not be disappointed. Now we step into Bless the Hearts' Dead Mall, their second Halloween special of the series, and this episode sees Jenny, Wayne, Brenda, Violet, David, and Betty visit a mall after Jenny gets a flyer for saying goodbye to the abandoned Greenpoint Mall, which shut down 10 years before the show start. And this one I didn't really like at first, but after I rewatched it, I sort of liked it. I sort of liked it more. I would say that this episode is. I would say the first and second acts of this episode are definitely solid. The third act is sort of okayish, but I mean, it's grown on me after I rewatched it. This one's so basically after they entered the mall, they get locked in, and Jenny thinks that other people are joining in for the mall walk too, because they see a girl named Stacy who accompanies them on their mall tour. But little do they know that Stacy's actually as when the groups separate to explore the mall, she ends up taking them all hostage onto a carousel, which sort of builds on in the end. There's sort of a reason for it, but yeah, I would say definitely this is better than Cremains of the Day. That is definitely for sure because the problem. I mean, I like Cremains of the Day and how they connected the two plots, but the problem with Cremains of the Day was it wasn't scary. So like you know like like what we want from Halloween specials is a sort of horror. So I think Denmal definitely does the horror part incredibly well. Of course just reading the log line, oh, they're getting taken hostage. It should at least provide some horror. And of course, this one keeps them all in one setting, which I really like. I like when characters are all in one setting. The episode My Best Friend and Big Trouble in Little Greenpoint also do good jobs with that. And even like something like Bob's Burgers Legends of the Mall. And because they're all like they all go on separate sort of plots, but they're all in one setting. It just makes it more fun and more focused because because you sort of know that everything might eventually come together in the end. So of course, going back to the plot, Stacy ends up kidnapping all of them, and then of course, Wayne and Jenny are the only ones left, and Jenny asks Stacy why she would do that, but it turns out that Stacy has a personal vendetta against Jenny. Of course, if you've seen, of course, this is sort of a parody of The Incredibles 2. I mean, sorry, the original Incredibles. I don't know why I said Incredibles 2. The original Incredibles, this kid named Buddy adored Mr. Incredible so much, but Mr. Incredible kept ignoring him. So eventually, he wanted to kill him for doing that. So then he turned into a bad guy, with a bunch of technology. Of course, if you know, I mean, of course, it's very similar to that, because Stacy's doing this only because of her because Jenny ignored her when she was younger. But I mean, of course, even though Jenny apologizes, she still doesn't forgive her, and she's going to kill her when the mall explodes by tying her into the carousel. And somehow I thought it was a little bit lazy, like sort of Wayne unties himself. It sort of doesn't explain how he untied himself, but like he did anyway. Uh, and he was able to save them by conquering his fear of a mannequin. So actually, throughout the episode, he has a fear of mannequins through the mall because they're everywhere. Like they're in the security room, they're all around. Like he even gets one stuck inside of him for some reason. And Jenny sort of makes everyone sort of makes fun of it for everyone sort of makes fun of him for it. Like there's even one where Jenny grabs a mannequin hand and she's like, "Here, Wayne, grab my hand." And then he pulls it, and her hand comes out, and he gets scared. And then, of course, she's making fun of his fear of mannequins. But, but I mean, here, sort of, Wayne kisses a mannequin to sort of save his family, and eventually, I think Stacy sort of died in the mall because it doesn't explain what happened to her, but I think she's gone. Even though that last 10 seconds is sort of a little for sort of I guess fans could speculate what's going to happen because, yeah, of course, Stacy's return seems pretty evident. If this show gets renewed for more seasons, I definitely see Stacy returning. Like, I mean, well, or if Stacy doesn't return, I see Kristen Shaw coming back in the future. Her husband writes for Bless the Hearts, so I mean, I personally didn't think it was hard to get her on the show. And I mean, Kristen Shaw's performance is definitely one of the episode's best highlights, in my opinion. Uh, there's also a lot of pop culture references, there are a lot. I know Fox bought rights to play 2000 songs, really popular 2000 songs, in the episode, as per se. And I actually kind of sort of like the pop culture references. Um, I sort of like the pop culture references this episode had. I mean, if you want a nostalgic memory from years ago, of course, you would you would have those pop culture references. And I mean, it's also sort of it's sort of a okayish look into Jenny's and Brenda's past. I mean, like they were selfish people back then, but I mean, if you look at it now, they're definitely a lot different than they were before. But I mean, overall, like a lot of people were different back as teenagers than they were now. Th- Than they were as adults, and I mean, it's sort of nice to see how she was in the past, even though it gets a bit annoying afterwards. But I mean, overall, I would say I like this more upon a rewatch, and I'm glad I rewatched it. So I would say Dead Mall is a pretty solid episode for Halloween, much better than last year's for sure. Unfortunately, it's still I think the worst of the season, unfortunately. But I mean, it's still a good episode. There's no doubt about it. It's still a good episode. I mean, I wouldn't say I recommend it really, but I was overall pretty disappointed because I expected a lot more. I expected a lot more because after they pulled out Megalomemories, I honestly thought they could do something even better or just as good. But I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm just waiting for next month's big hit, and I'm hoping it's better than last year's, which will be hard to top. Now we go into Bob's Burgers and Heartbreak Hotel-oween, and this episode sees Tina, Jean, and Louise deliver a burger to an old woman who stays in the hotel every year on Halloween. Who stays in a hotel room, a specific hotel room, every year on Halloween to conjure the spirit uh, of of someone she liked that died in that room as payback for cheating on her. And Bob donates blood in the subplot. So I'm going to talk about the subplot first. Subplot is pretty basic. I honestly thought it was funny. Like I like seeing Bob. I like seeing Bob struggle, and like his fear of needles so really relates to me because I am not a fan of people poking needles in me. But people poking needles in me, like when I get blood tests or flu shots. But I mean, I guess I especially didn't like it, as children even. But like seeing Bob being scared of it sort of really hit home for me because of how I feel. The show is definitely really good with relatable topics and like turning them into weird, wacky situations. That's why I love the show. But I mean, it's really good for Bob's Burgers, honestly. But like I mean, there were sort of some qualms I have. Like I think the subplot sort of overstays its welcome, even though it's pretty funny at first. But I think it just took a little bit too long. The main plot was really fun. I liked seeing the even though it wasn't very scary. I liked seeing Tina go on her mystery phase, and she tries to solve the mystery using the clues given to her, which honestly makes for a pretty fun watch. I liked I liked I liked seeing Louise's flashback story about her vendetta, and of course Tina convinces her not to go on it because it's not in the Halloween spirit. Which honestly I think is sort of true. I mean, if they didn't have candy, I mean, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad, but then Louise is only a little kid and she doesn't really know better. So to be fair, I mean, I guess in her defense, you could say it's sort of justified, but not really in the sense. I liked seeing Dolores's past, and like how people also to come in and get that horror vibe just because of a 50-year tradition, and of course how Tina eventually puts an end to Dolores's tradition, unfortunately. But I mean, Dolores said that she was sort of wasting her time, and that pretty much concludes the episode. I would say, I honestly like this episode quite a lot. I know I don't have a lot to say about it, but I think it was incredibly fun to watch. No, again, the only con is it wasn't very scary, which I mean, I guess you sort of can't put that at fault, but to be fair, I think it could have leaned into the horror better. So yeah, so yeah, uh, overall, overall, it's definitely better than Deadmall, mainly because I think I definitely like how the plots are more structured, but and it's definitely better than last Treehouse of Horror because Treehouse of Horror has anthologies. If one anthology is boring, I'm definitely going to downgrade the rest. It's definitely not as scary, but it's definitely not as scary or like even like leans into the horror well like the others. But I mean, really, that's really the only fault. I found myself laughing quite a lot through this episode. Even like, I'm actually glad I gave it a rewatch because through the rewatch, I had so much fun watching this. I can't wait for you guys to see it. So yeah, this is pretty fun. So now we finally go into Family Guy's Cutawayland. Cutawayland sees Peter and Lois being transported into the actual cutaway when both of them set it up at the exact same time. So basically, Family Guy. So basically, the Griffins start the episode going to the beach to relax. Peter falls asleep on the beach, and then somehow they go home. Somehow they go home, and Peter and Lois want to make out, but then Meg, Chris, Brian, and Stewie are washing dishes and doing a happy family dishwashing scene, which I honestly really liked. I thought it was incredibly funny. I really liked how Stewie broke the fourth wall. I really like how Stewie broke the fourth wall. I really laughed so much. But then I guess sort of after that it sort of derails. I'm supposing like there's honestly a terrible coronavirus joke in this episode. Uh, the story isn't really that good to be honest. I mean, okay, Peter and Lois get transported into the cutaway. They try to get out. Then they actually end up transporting their entire family in there, which honestly makes for one funny joke where Brian's like, "I was transported here like when he was driving a car. Is that a bad problem?" Which I honestly thought that Cutaway was funny. But I mean, in the sort of setup, you think Cutaway Land would be like making fun of sort of anthologies like Rick and Morty's Never Rick and Morty, but like that episode, it doesn't really have this sort of. I mean, I guess I could say Rick and Morty sort of did its job there by showing how the episode works. But I mean, like Family Guy doesn't really do that good of a job with this because the problem is that they're not using their title to their best asset. If it's called Cutaway Land, we want to see maybe like an entire land full of cutaways you could like jump into. But then this one is just okay. Peter and Lois get trapped in a cutaway, and they get trapped in a cutaway. They bring their entire family with them. They try to get out, but of course, they call Joe, and Joe tells them the only way to get out is to go back to the first cutaway, which I honestly thought was a really good throwback, to be honest. And that's where I think that's where the story sort of excels because it's honestly really funny how like. Oh, you have to kill Hitler in the first cutaway. You remember from the first cutaway from the pilot, Death Has a Shadow, was Hitler was at the gym, and he was jealous of the other men who were getting ladies when he couldn't, and of course Meg and of course Lois feels bad and doesn't want to kill her, but Meg kills her anyway. They end up getting transported back home, and of course I think really the problem with this was it was a dream, which was sort of weird, but I mean I guess it was okay. It didn't really. I was just a little disappointed when I found out it was a dream and nothing really happened. So yeah, this one was okay. I was going to. I thought I was gonna like or hate it maybe a little more, but it ended up being okay. Definitely better than last week. So like, no doubt about it. Like, I just wish the plot was more structured and just more interesting in general. I found myself pretty bored watching it at times. But I mean, it's not bad. It's fine. So yeah, last this year's better than last year's, no doubt about it. Not even a contest. So I want to know what you thought in the comments. Of course, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.